In the fog-drenched district of Old Willow Creek, there stood a tailor shop that had no sign, no windows, and no schedule. The locals called it the Velvet Grave. It belonged to a man named Master Silas, a tailor whose reputation for creating the most perfect, lifelike garments in America was legendary. People whispered that his suits didn't just fit the body, they felt like a second skin. Ethan, a 19-year-old runaway with no money and a desperate need for work, knocked on the heavy iron-bound door. He had heard Silas was looking for an apprentice. The door creaked open, revealing a hallway lit by flickering tallow candles. The air smelled of ozone, old copper, and a cloying sweet scent that reminded Ethan of a funeral parlor. Silas appeared from the shadows. He was unnervingly tall, his skin so pale and translucent that you could almost see the pulsing blue veins beneath. His eyes were like two pieces of polished obsidian, cold, unblinking, and vacant. "I'm here for the job, sir," Ethan stammered, his American accent trembling. Silas tilted his head, his neck joints popping like dry twigs. "You have clean skin, Ethan. Unblemished. Rare. Step inside. Let us see if you have the stomach for the needle." For the first week, Ethan's job was simple: organize the threads. But these weren't ordinary threads. They were thick, elastic, and had a strange pearlescent sheen. When Ethan touched them, they felt warm, almost as if they had a pulse. One night, curiosity overcame his fear. Silas had gone out to collect supplies, and Ethan found the key to the basement. As he descended the stone steps, the smell became unbearable, the stench of raw meat mixed with chemical preservatives. When he reached the bottom, he didn't find rolls of silk or wool. He found the wardrobe. Hanging from meat hooks along the ceiling were what looked like coats. But as Ethan moved his flashlight over them, his heart nearly stopped. They weren't coats. They were entire human skins, preserved and treated until they were as soft as velvet. Some still had the hair attached. Some still had the fingernails serving as decorative trim. But the horror didn't stop there. In the corner of the room stood several forms. These were living people, held in a state of suspended animation by a glowing green chemical drip. Their skin had been meticulously harvested from their backs and limbs, leaving raw, red muscle exposed. Their mouths were sewn shut with that same pulsing thread. One of them, a man who might have been a traveler named Caleb, turned his eyes toward Ethan. They were filled with an infinite, silent agony. He couldn't scream, but the rhythmic twitching of his exposed muscles sounded like a frantic plea for death. Beautiful, isn't it? Ethan spun around. Silas was standing at the base of the stairs, a pair of long silver shears in his hand. The clack, clack, clack of the blades echoed in the damp basement. You're a monster," Ethan gasped, backing away into the racks of human leather. "I am an artist, Ethan," Silas hissed, stepping into the light. "The world is full of people who don't appreciate the gift of their form. I simply make them permanent. And you are my finest canvas yet. I've been waiting for a specimen with your exact shade of ivory." Before Ethan could run, Silas moved with supernatural speed. He struck Ethan across the temple with the heavy handle of the shears. The world went black. When Ethan woke up, he was stripped naked and strapped to a cold, slanted wooden table. His limbs were bound with leather straps. Silas was hovering over him, humming a low, tuneless melody. On a side table sat a tray of bone-handled needles and a bowl of the human silk, the dried, treated veins of his previous victims. The process must be done while the blood is still warm, Silas whispered, tracing a line down Ethan's chest with a cold, sharp fingernail. It ensures the fit is perfect. You won't die, Ethan. Not for a long time. You will simply become my masterpiece. Silas picked up the silver shears. Catch, catch, catch. Just as the cold steel touched Ethan's skin, something changed in the basement. The green chemical vats began to hiss and bubble. The forms, the skinless victims Silas had kept alive, began to convulse. The chemical that Silas used to keep them alive had a side effect he had long ignored. It preserved the soul's rage along with the body's flesh. One of the victims, a massive man named Brandon, whose skin had been turned into a trench coat, hanging nearby, lunged forward. His muscles were raw and slick, but his grip was like iron. He tore the meat hook from the ceiling and swung his weight towards Silas. The distraction was enough. Ethan screamed and pulled with a strength born of pure terror. The ancient wood of the table splintered, and his right hand broke free. He reached for the bone needle on the tray and stabbed it deep into Silas's thigh. Silas roared, a sound that wasn't human. But the wardrobe was waking up. The hanging skins began to flutter as if caught in a wind. The skinless men and women, their mouths still sewn shut, surrounded the tailor. They didn't need voices to express their vengeance. Ethan watched, paralyzed with horror, as the skinless victims dragged Silas onto his own workbench. They didn't kill him quickly. That would be too kind. They took the bone needles, they took the pulsing vein threads, and they began to work. With the precision Silas had taught them through months of torture, they began to retailor the tailor. They peeled the skin from Silas's arms while he was wide awake. They took his ears and his nose and stitched them onto the coats that needed repair. The most horrific part was the final stitch. They took Silas's own skin, the skin he was so proud of, and began to sew it inside out. They stitched his eyes open so he could never blink. They stitched his limbs together into a permanent, distorted pose. Ethan scrambled up the stairs as the basement filled with the sound of tearing flesh and the wet, muffled gurgles of the master tailor. He didn't look back until he reached the street. He ran until his lungs burned, never stopping until he saw the sunrise over the main coastline. 2 weeks later, the police finally raided the shop after neighbors complained of a vile, rotting odor. They found the basement empty of living souls. The skinless victims were gone, vanished into the night like ghosts of meat and bone. But in the center of the room, standing on a pedestal, was a new suit. It was a tuxedo, exquisite in its detail. The fabric was a pale, creamy white, with buttons made of real human teeth. The chief of police reached out to touch the sleeve, marveling at how soft it felt. "God, it's almost like it's breathing," the officer whispered. Suddenly, the officer screamed and pulled his hand away. The suit had twitched. Beneath the collar of the tuxedo, two obsidian black eyes rolled upward, staring at the officer with a look of eternal, unblinking agony. The master tailor was still there, trapped inside his own skin, sewn into a garment that would never rot and would never let him die. Silas had finally achieved his dream. He was the perfect fit.